Welcome to the Seed Grant Workshop. This is part 2 of the 6-part series. In the previous video, we provided an overview of the seed grants. In this video, we will discuss aligning your project with the seed grant funding goals. And in other videos, we will discuss a deeper dive of the IEPA core competencies. We'll talk about replication and sustainability, and we'll go over the budget. And then in video 6, we wrap up with a discussion of the application submission process. Let's talk a little bit about alignment. In this video, we will review 8 tips for aligning your project with the funding goals of the seed grant. First, have the broadest reach. Next, be sustainable. Then we'll discuss budget and competencies. We'll discuss requirements and IP definitions, and we'll wrap up with assessment and strategic alignment. Let's look at each of these a little further. One of the first steps in aligning your proposal is to consider how you will have the broadest impact with your project. Our goal is to eventually be able to offer your IP project to all health science learners that have an accreditation or graduation requirement for interprofessional education. However, as a project pilot, we know you might have to start small. In your application, you will need to tell us which programs you will be collaborating with. This isn't who could be invited in the future. You should check off who you have already reached out to and already invited to collaborate now in this proposal. Other programs should be consulted on how many students they could assign or volunteer to participate in the pilot project. Later, in the narrative section of the application, you can address scalability on how the project could reach more students or more professions after a successful pilot. Next, let's discuss sustainability. Our goal is to ensure you have goals. This seems simple, but it requires a strong narrative and a plan of work. We recommend that your narrative be clear, concise, and include the story of your project and what you envision. A key recommendation here is to have someone else read your narrative. Ideally, ask someone not familiar with the project. They will be able to give you honest and objective feedback on if they understand your goals and if your project seems feasible and sustainable. You can also view the 4th video in this series on project sustainability. Our next goal of alignment is budgetary. In your application, ensure you do not go over $4,000 and don't skip the justification section. Easy to miss. A key tip is to ensure your budget is aligned with the scope and operations of the pilot project. You can also review the 5th video in this series on budget do's and don'ts. Next, we'll discuss the IEPA competency section of the application. We'll go into further detail about the competencies in video 3, but here, with relation to project alignment, you will need to select at least one of the IEPA core competencies for interprofessional collaborative practice. We don't give extra points for selecting more than one. However, you would want to select all that are appropriate for your project. In your application, you should outline briefly how your pilot project will address the competency you select. This will need to be explicit enough for the grant reviewer to clearly understand that your proposal is competency-driven. In that same spirit, we'll point out that the grant reviewer will be using a scoring rubric. The rubric is published on the IEP website along with the grant application materials. You'll want to make sure your application is aligned with the areas of the rubric and that you don't leave anything blank or vague. Here again, it might be helpful to have a colleague review your application using the rubric for a mock review. Now we'll return to the application in the section discussing the definition of interprofessional education. As we mentioned in the previous video, interprofessional education is defined as occurring when two or more professions learn about, from, and with each other. This is our international standard for IPE. Your grant proposal must align with this definition. We'll provide a few tips and clarifications. Students learning from each other means that one is teaching the other something new. One learner has to be in a formal teaching role. The grant proposal will need to explicitly state where the learners will intentionally teach each other. Often learning objectives and outcomes will be tied to that teaching. Next, learning with each other. The with statement is commonly misunderstood. Learning with each other also must be intentional. In the spirit of IPE, it means the students are intentionally working together as a team to learn something new at the same time in the team collaborative setting. It can't be just two learners learning something at the same time. For example, PA and dental students attending the same lecture wouldn't count. Finally, the about section. This is the most common on campus where students have an opportunity to learn about other professions. And again, though, it still needs to be intentional and explicit. In each of these areas, the key takeaway is intentionality. Consider writing specific learning objectives, activities, and outcomes to ensure you're addressing these areas. Don't simply put learners together in a room and indicate that they have an opportunity to interact. Next, we have a goal of ensuring educational assessment is completed. On campus, we are committed to an evaluation plan measuring participant outcomes through team behaviors using the Jefferson Team Observation Guide, also referred to using the acronym JTOG. JTOG is a contractual survey tool from Thomas Jefferson University used with an agreement through OU interdisciplinary programs. The IP office also houses the IRB for IP program evaluation and operates the instrument in REDCap. Seed grant projects can use the JTOG by requesting permission in advance. Additional assessment and evaluation tools are available through the National Center for Interprofessional Practice and Education. We often refer to the National Center as the Nexus. In the National Center Resource Center, there are over 200 peer-reviewed tools for interprofessional education and practice activities. Remember, you may need to contact the survey author to request permission to use their tool, so please plan enough time for correspondence. And finally, we have to ensure that there is strategic alignment with your proposal. Your narrative should outline where your project proposal aligns with a strategic pillar, strategy, or tactic. You can Google OU strategic plan to get a full list of the current strategic plan initiatives, including those related to research, workforce development, and lifting the health of Oklahoma. This will conclude video 2. Please let us know if you have any questions.